Hello YouTube! Scott here with an instant review of Marvel's What If. This time we're looking at episode 2, which asks the question, what if T'Challa became a Star-Lord? So, as you may have guessed by the title, it's a nice little mix of Black Panther and Guardians of the Galaxy. As far as an overview, I did enjoy this episode mostly. The voice casting was vastly improved over the first one. Like, almost everybody, with the exception of Peter Quill, like every character you would recognize from the movies, is voiced by the actor that played them. And interesting thing here, I was looking at the additional voices in the cast, and the name Don Fullalove jumped out at me. Not just because it's an interesting last name, but because if you know your movie history, he's the guy that played Goldie Wilson in the Back to the Future movies. As far as the plot goes and the characters, I really liked that Yondu and T'Challa have the same sort of fatherly-son relationship that he had with Peter. It's nice to see some things don't change across universes. There's, even some stuff between Thanos and Nebula. It was kind of surprising to see her, but I'm going to try to explain that in a second, because I'm going to get into spoilers. So, the premise of this episode is that, just like in the original, which, by the way, I've decided I'm going to call the MCU movies, like the ones that we know, I'm going to refer to that universe as Marvel Prime. Try to get that to catch on, although I'm sure somebody else already has. But anyway, in Marvel Prime, Ego hired Yondu and the Ravagers to abduct Peter from Earth. Now, apparently they did this by sweeping the Earth and looking for something that shouldn't have been there, like, his half-celestial heritage. But in this version, Yondu decided to let... I really hate that I have to look this up while I'm doing this. Really? Yeah, Yondu decided to let Kraglin and Taserface... That's still funny, I don't care who you are. Decided to let Kraglin and Taserface take care of it. And when they swept the planet, they found that large vibranium meteorite that Wakanda is sitting on top of. Now, at the same time, T'Challa, who was doing some exploring of his own, traveled outside of the shield, or the cloaking thing that protects Wakanda from the rest of the world. And that's when he was abducted. Now, fast forward 20 years, and the beginning of the episode, because this is all actually flashback, the beginning of the episode is exactly like the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy, except with a lot less dancing. It's like when Peter opens the door to the final chamber and finds the Infinity Stone, it starts there. But instead of freaking out when he captures him, Korath, Djimon Hounsou's character, is a total Star-Lord fanboy because T'Challa has apparently reformed the Ravagers. Now, this is where we get a little critical. So I can accept the fact that T'Challa was abducted instead of Peter, sure. And that he became a Ravager, fine. And as it turns out, his moral compass was so straight, he actually caused Yondu and the Ravagers to reform, and while they still did commit crimes, it was for the good of the galaxy. I'll accept that too, sure. He manages to get Korath to become a Ravager, okay. Nebula apparently works for them too, sure. And believe it or not, this version of T'Challa talked Thanos into giving up his idea of snapping away half the universe, and Thanos is also a Ravager. It's a bit of a stretch, but I can accept it. Here's my problem with logistically speaking. T'Challa is a prince of Wakanda. He's next in line for the throne. And yet he was somehow easily abducted by aliens. And there's even a point in this episode where he finds a Wakandan spaceship that was sent to find him. But how did they even manage to get away with that? I mean, Where were the Dora Milaje? They're in the episode, we see them. I don't know if like T'Chaka reacted out of anger and executed a few of them over that, because it seems like they should have been protecting the prince, or at least know where he went. But whatever. But after all this stuff, it kind of turns into a heist movie. Because the main villain is the Collector. And this version of the Collector is like way more badass than the other one. He's got some MacGuffin, I think it's called the Embers of Genesis. It looks like it just creates life out of nowhere. Kind of skipped over that part. That's kind of like the least interesting part. Because the whole thing involves double crossing and then triple crossing, and there's a switcheroo in there at one point. And Nebula has not the same daddy issues, but still daddy issues, but Thanos manages to redeem himself. And there's this fight between T'Challa and the Collector, where he unleashes a surprising array of weapons. He's got Cap's vibranium shield. He has Thor's hammer. He has Malekith's dagger. He has Hela's helmet, the one she was wearing in Ragnarok. Like, how did he manage to get all his help? Or, dang it, I'm mumbling now. How did he manage to get all of these things in this universe? Where are the Avengers? And isn't this like the other side of the galaxy or something? Anyway, T'Challa manages to get out, along the way freeing Howard the Duck. And it was cool to see Howard the Duck, and Seth Green voiced him. I mean, you can't go wrong there. And they managed to pull out a happy ending. I mean, some of the Embers of Genesis wound up propagating or whatever it is they do, and basically grew all through nowhere. And T'Challa finally returned home to Wakanda and his family, bringing the family he'd made along the way. Now, I don't know if they were trying to tease something or whatever, but right at the end, you see a grown-up Peter Quill who apparently works at a Dairy Queen. Unsurprisingly, that same Dairy Queen from Guardians 2. And wouldn't you know it, Ego shows up. But then you get the Watcher saying that that's a story for another day. So I guess, like, if they went into that, that would be cool, actually. So aside from the fact that I don't particularly care for heist movies, this was a pretty good episode. I mean, it was nice to see that despite what I thought the last time, they didn't decide to just move on to the next movie in the timeline and make up an alternate universe for Captain Marvel. But I got to admit, like, having seen the amount of weapons that the Collector had, I kind of want to know what happened to the Avengers in this universe. Like, how does the world even the same? Should it have been destroyed by Ultron by now, or taken over by the Chitauri? I don't know. Maybe I'm just too much of a quote-unquote canon purist. Which is weird, because I really do like alternate timelines, but this one's just raising a lot of questions for me. You know what? If you have any questions, put them down below. You know, like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll be back next week with another review, and until then, I've been Scott, and this is Opinions No One Cares About. Everyone has opinions. This one was mine.